Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you about one of the creamiest and most iconic cheeses from the French Alps, which was part of the banquets of French royalty, Beaufort cheese. This cheese, with its smooth texture and special flavor, hides a secret in its shape that few know. But wait, because later on, I will reveal how this cheese saved entire communities during the harshest winters in Europe. And yes, its flavor has an epic story behind it. So let's discover it together. To understand Beaufort, we need to travel to the heart of the French Alps, in the Savoy region, a place where imposing mountains and flowering meadows create the perfect setting for this legendary cheese. It is believed that Beaufort was already being made during the Roman Empire, but it was during the Middle Ages that it became the main sustenance for alpine communities. In the 17th century, it reached the table of Louis XIV, the Sun King, who considered it a delicacy worthy of nobility. During the Napoleonic Wars, Beaufort was part of the army's provisions due to its preservation capacity and high nutritional content. Can you imagine how a cheese can last so long without refrigeration? That is related to the production process, which has a key detail that not everyone knows, and I'll tell you about it right away. Beaufort is not just a cheese. It is the result of centuries of tradition and a meticulous process that begins in the meadows of the Alps. Yes, in the alpine meadows. These cows feed on pastures rich in herbs and wildflowers, which translates into the flavor of the cheese. All the elements that are in the grass, flowers, etc., always pass into the milk. To make Beaufort, the milk must be gently heated and natural rennet is added. But here is the curious detail. The curd is cut into extremely fine squares. You have to cut it into fine, I would say, rice grain, which allows for more whey to be removed and helps with the long preservation of the cheese. Let's talk about molding. Beaufort is pressed into molds with wooden bands that give it its concave shape at the edges. Why this shape? It's not just aesthetic, it has its purpose, and I'll tell you in a moment how this facilitates its transport in the mountains. Let's talk a little about the aging of the cheese. Beaufort cheese ages between 5 and 12 months in cold and humid cellars, where it is brushed with brine to develop its natural rind and characteristic flavor. And here I'm going to give you a detail. Do you realize the precision of the process? This is nothing compared to the explosion of flavors hidden behind each bite. Now, if you stay in the video, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a quality Beaufort and what makes its flavor unforgettable. Beaufort is an edible work of art, and every aspect is designed to captivate the senses. Why do I say this? Because its paste is pale yellow to golden, with a smooth texture and no holes, and the rind is a natural ochre color with a rustic character reflecting its aging in alpine cellars. Its texture is firm and elastic, with a creaminess that melts softly in the mouth. Now let's talk about the aroma. And here comes the magic. The aroma of Beaufort evokes or reminds us of fresh butter, also of nuts, and also of the flowers of the Alps. This is a true walk through the mountain meadows, but through cheese. In terms of flavor, Beaufort has a sweet and fruity taste at first, with notes of hazelnut and a slightly salty finish that lingers in the mouth. Now its flavor varies by season, more floral in summer and more intense in winter. Now that you know what it looks and tastes like, you must be wondering, how do I enjoy it to the fullest? Here I'm going to give you some combinations that will make Beaufort a cheese you'll never forget and will shine like never before, including an unexpected pairing that you might not have tried in your life. Beaufort is so versatile that it can be enjoyed in many ways, from a simple cheese board to sophisticated dishes. For example, if you're pairing it with wines, you can use a Burgundy Chardonnay, which highlights its creaminess. Also, a light red wine like Pinot Noir, which creates an elegant contrast. You can also try it with an amber beer or even with a smoky black tea. This contrast will surprise you, I assure you. And to accompany it, you can use fresh fruits like pears, green apples, or perhaps some grapes. And if you want to use nuts, try toasted nuts, which enhance the hazelnut notes of the cheese. You could also use rustic bread, perhaps a sourdough bread, which is a perfect bite. Now, if you want to make a recipe with Beaufort, you can make a fondue, known as fondue Savoyard, which is a blend of fondue made with Beaufort cheese, Comté cheese, and Gruyere cheese. The Beaufort will give that type of fondue a crazy touch. You can also use Beaufort for gratin in a tartiflette, which I previously mentioned is simply a potato cake with cheese on top, or a quiche Lorraine would also be an excellent option. And here's a tip. You can use Beaufort and grate it on top of onion soup. The Beaufort, when heated in the soup, is spectacular. I promise it will be a game changer. And before we finish, I'm going to tell you a curiosity that not everyone knows about Beaufort, and it will change the way you see it, and I'm referring to its shape. Why do you think that shape is concave, and why is it so particular? The answer is more ingenious than you imagine, and I'll tell you in a moment. Do you remember when I asked you about the shape of the cheese? Well, that's just a simple aesthetic detail. Alpine shepherds designed Beaufort this way just to facilitate transport and stack the cheese in the best way. See you next time.